So my name is Christina Maurin. I am a supervisor here at the National Centers for Environmental Information, which falls under NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the federal government. I work with data station and satellite and radar data that comes into our center, where it is archived, importantly, and then also used to create different data sets and tools and narratives that are available publicly. Doing lots of different things. In my career, I have done, so at this point, I do a lot of supervision. I do a lot of work with members of my team who are managing data, climate data flow into our centers and working on creating data sets that then products and tools and assessments are made further upstream. That is what I'm currently doing for the most part. So looking at a lot of data flow, a lot of procedural things into our center. Historically, though, I've also been on the further upstream end. So I've worked and used maps and all of this data to create weather forecasts, to create briefings for looking at current conditions in a lot of different areas of the world, focusing on different whether it could be impactful to the US economy or if it could be impactful to humanitarian and socioeconomic statuses of different areas of the world. So kind of run the gambit, but when it comes back to, I do a lot of writing up of reports. I have done a lot of software and computer programming. So the most part, I do a lot of desk work, but I get to touch a lot of different pieces of the country and the world. So we have two main ways that we receive data, two different types, I will say. One is that we have point data. So it's going to be something that's measured at a specific site, like a weather station. We call that in situ data sets. Those we get via a few different ways, but the main way is it is collected by the World Meteorological Organization. So that is kind of the international meteorology group for the world. And all of that information is exchanged between the countries on what we call the GTS, the Global Transcommunication System. So it's just an agreement and it's just kind of the internet for us to go and grab all of the weather data from different weather stations around the world. So we bring that into our center here and then kind of clean it up, do some quality control, and make it a more cohesive data set for you to use. We also have some data sets or some station networks that are managed specifically by the National Weather Service. So we receive those directly from them. Those are also available to the world, but we kind of have an insider view on those ones because they're our own nations. So they're measuring all sorts of weather information. So your real basics would be, temperature, precipitation. They measure snowfall in snow season. Wind is measured as well. So a lot humidity, basically most of your basic weather things that you would see when you opened a weather app. Some of them do have other capabilities that they measure. Like we have some sites that will measure soil moisture. So they actually have probes into the ground that will measure how much water is in the ground or how saturated it is. So drought indices specifically are looking at dryness of an area, but dryness is relative when you compare like temperature and precipitation based on where you are. An index will use several different variables to characterize dryness for an area so that it can be compared across several different land types, terrain types. So you can basically, so you can compare it across the United States or the world. For example, if you look at just precipitation and you see that you get maybe half an inch in the Southwest, that means a very different thing. And then if you look at you're getting a half inch, in the Mississippi River Basin. That's where using something like an indices then creates more of a context for these areas, and you can compare them when trying to hold yourself to whether you're in a drought or not. Because a drought in the Southwest is going to look very different and be impacted by temperature and precipitation very differently than if you look at somewhere like Missouri.